Whatever you think is permanent, that you could never get past, you need to see that mountain being turned into a molehill. David, in the scripture, he went through a lot of opposition, lonely nights, betrayals. King Saul was trying to kill him. His little baby was sick and didn't make it. There were plenty of things that could have stopped his destiny. But he said in Psalm 30, God, you have turned my mourning into dancing. You've turned my sorrow into joy. He could have lived bitter, discouraged, looking in the rearview mirror, but he understood we serve a turnaround God. And yes, you may have seasons of mourning, times you go through loss, disappointments, things that are not fair, but that's not how your story ends. A turnaround is coming. God is going to take what was meant for harm and turn it to your advantage. He's not going to stop all the difficulties. He won't keep you from every mountain, but He did promise He would turn the sorrow into joy. He'll turn the mountain into a molehill. Weeping may endure for a night, but joy is coming in the morning. You have to get your fire back. The disappointments, the loss, what you're up against didn't stop your purpose. God is still in control. He didn't bring you this far to leave you. It seems like a setback, but really it's a setup for God to show out in a greater way. Zephaniah went on to say, when God turns it around, everything you've lost will be restored. Instead of shame, He will give you honor. Burdens you've carried will be lifted. Verse 19 says, He will get rid of all those that have made your life miserable. He will heal the sick. He will bring home the prodigals. You will be respected wherever you go. What's limited you in the past is not going to limit you anymore. When I look back over my life, I can see the God of the turnaround. My mother was diagnosed with terminal cancer. No treatment that they could give her. It was Christmas of 1981. We were expecting to have a fun time with the family, all together, joyful. Instead, it was a time of weeping. I had never seen my mother sick a day in her life. Now she was frail, skin yellow, very weak. She was only 46 years old. We did what I'm asking you to do. We said, Father, this looks impossible to us, but we know You're a turnaround God. The scripture says, the moment you pray, the tide of the battle turns. Something supernatural happens when you pray in faith. The turnaround God goes to work. Miracles are set in motion. Angels are dispatched. Favor is released. Don't just think about your problems. Don't just worry, live stressed. Go to God in prayer. Ask Him to turn it around. Ask Him to heal you, to free you, to favor you, to bring that dream to pass, to move that mountain. Not begging Him, oh God, please, you got to do it. No, go to Him in faith. Father, I know You're bigger than this cancer. You're stronger than this opposition. You're more powerful than this addiction. I'm asking You to make a way where I don't see a way. Here's the key. Once you pray, believe that it's already done. You may not see it with your physical eyes. Most of the time, it doesn't happen instantly. There's a period from when you pray to when the answer will show up. That's a test of your faith. And thoughts will say, nothing happened. It's not going to work out. This turnaround thing is not for you. Don't believe those lies. In the unseen realm, the turnaround is already in motion. What God promised is already en route. Instead of going downhill, like the medical report said about my mother, she started getting better, defying the odds. Her skin went back to a normal color. She got her energy back. She gained her weight back. Today, 41 years later, she's still healthy and whole. God has turned our sorrow into joy. He's turned our mourning into dancing. You may have situations that look permanent. All the circumstances say it'll never work out. It's been too long. The odds are against you. God is not limited by what limits us. We're natural. He's supernatural. He's saying to you today, a turnaround is coming. He's going to turn that sickness into health like He did for my mother. He's going to turn that loneliness into companionship. He's going to turn that child that's off course back into his purpose. He's going to turn those people that are against you, suddenly they're going to be for you. He's going to turn that dream that looks too far gone into a reality. This is a turnaround day. You're going to see mountains turned into molehills. What was meant to stop you is going to be turned to push you into your destiny. When we were trying to acquire this place, the former Compact Center, we needed 10 votes from the city council members. We worked for a year and a half, convincing the council members. We had exactly 10, just what we needed. But 2 days before the main vote, one of the council members who was for us received so much pressure from the other side, he decided to be out of town for the vote. That was like a no vote without him being there. We wouldn't get the facility. We couldn't believe it. It was the last moment. We'd worked all this time and now we were 1 vote shy. I went to visit with a young Jewish council member that had been against us the whole time. I thought, I have nothing to lose. When I walked in his office, he said, Joel, I've changed my mind. I'm going to vote for you. I nearly passed out. He told how there was an older Jewish woman that he knew growing up. He always had great respect for her, but he hadn't spoken with her in over 20 years. She called him the day before and told him in no uncertain terms that he was to vote for Lakewood having the Compact Center. He changed his mind. His vote gave us the facility. God knows how to turn people that are against you and cause them to be for you.
How in the world did I get here? I got here because of God's grace. My plight had overtaken me, and I was about done. But right when you think you're about done, don't he always show up? And you name me one single thing God ain't brought you through. Can you name it? If he ain't brought you through it, he's currently pulling you through it right now. And you know how I know that's real? Because you're sitting in him. He do miraculous things all the time. Why would you not want one of them miracles to happen for you? I'm sitting here, for me to be here today, the dude that I was, it's a miracle. We pray little prayers. We pray stuff that we see a way to get. You supposed to pray for stuff you can't see no way how you can get it. God is in the make your dream come true business. God is in the get your life together business. God is in the forgiving business. Don't let nobody fool you, man. Don't let nobody fool you. Don't forget to pray. Don't be ashamed to pray, and don't ever be too proud to pray, because prayer changes things. You have a great life in front of you, but your great life is in front of you. It's not behind you. What you did back there ain't got nothing to do with what God got for you. What you did back there was learn the lessons to get you to where you are at this particular moment right here. But what God got for you, do you know, man, that you can actually mess your life completely up? You can jack it all the way up and you can turn around and get it right. Do you know that you can be divorced multiple times and still be okay? Do you understand that you cannot have a degree and still be just fine? You want to know how I know? Because I'm telling you what I know. I lost everything twice. I don't know if you've ever lost everything before, but I've been bottomed out twice. I done seen rock bottom 2 times. I've been through some walls up in here, man. God is in the forgiving business.
If you are completely obsessed and totally focused, if you're taking massive action and getting better and better at executing, there's only one more thing you need to get whatever you want, and that's grace. Some call it luck, some call it grace, you might call it God, but there's no question in my life that grace is there. It's those things that show up to guide you when you've done the first 2 steps and your intent is something larger than just yourself. That's when all of a sudden things are great. You can benefit, but motive does matter. If you're trying to do something, it supports you, but it supports your family as well. It supports your community. It supports your country. It supports the world. A different level of insight comes through you. And that happens, this thing called grace. And I think the more you acknowledge grace, the more it shows up. So I'm not here to tell you what to believe spiritually. I don't believe in that. I believe you got to figure out what you believe and live it. But if you think there is no such thing as grace or God or infinite intelligence or whatever the right words are for you, because words can get in the way of what's real. If you don't think there is, it's kind of like saying the universe is a result of an explosion in a print factory. it all just came together perfectly in sync by accident. I just don't personally subscribe to that. But you can subscribe to whatever you want. I just know that those that acknowledge that something is giving me the gift of life, the more you acknowledge it, the more of it you experience.
We have all been created from the same source, and it is my conclusion that we must be like what we came from. It matters not what we call this source. The Tao that can be named is not the eternal Tao, is the message in the opening lines of the Tao Te Ching. Call it Tao, call it God, call it Jehovah, call it divine mind. It matters not. You are merely interested in recognizing that you originated from the source of all life in a form you know as your constantly changing physical body, which obviously contains the creative energy that you came from. Listen to these words, recorded during a 1967 lecture given by an initiatic science master, Omram Mikhail Ivanov of Bulgaria. Quote, "The Creator has planted within every creature a fragment of himself, a spark, a spirit of the same nature as himself. And thanks to this spirit, every creature can become a creator. And this means that instead of always waiting for their needs to be satisfied by some external source, human beings can work inwardly by means of their thought, their will, and their spirit to obtain the nourishing, healing elements they need. This is why the teaching I bring you is of the spirit, of the Creator, and not of matter." Unquote. I love this quote because it speaks to a part of you that has been largely ignored throughout all of your educational pursuits and accomplishments. The key words here are a fragment of himself, a spark that lies within you, but has largely been left unexamined. This is a great image for you to begin to understand the greatness of your higher self. There is a spark of God within you that is the invisibleness I've been alluding to. It is that which you cannot grasp with the senses. It beats your heart, it grows your hair, and it keeps your lungs breathing in and out. You've become accustomed to taking it for granted while putting the major focus of your life on the physical, that is the unreal part of you. My objective in this chapter and the next is to inspire you to recognize that a spark, a tiny fragment of the creative source of the universe, is located within you, and to help you increase the power of that spark so it becomes the primary force in your everyday life. Review the first chapter and affirm your willingness to change your concept of yourself to help you recognize and increase that spark. Then dedicate yourself to exploring this higher self that I'm talking about. Your higher self is that spark, but a spark is an infinitesimal portion of your physical being. If you weigh, say, 150 pounds, that spark weighs maybe 1/100th of an ounce or 1/1,000,000th of an ounce. This is only a symbolic image because the spark is unchanging. But I'm encouraging you to conceptualize that spark of God inside of you. Imagine it growing to double its size, then a tenfold spark, then maybe a shred, then a segment, then a chunk, then a lump, then a piece, then a section. And just perceive that spark of God as the real you becoming visible through your loving and inviting attentiveness until you feel the sacred presence of your higher self as the guiding light of your life. Ultimately, as I'll talk about later, it will overtake the you that's been dominated by an ego and your sensory apparatus. That former speck of a spark will become the foundation of your life. You might conceptualize this former spark as a sacred light inside of your head that is the same size as your brain. Now you've had a big piece of God to assist you in attaining a status wherein the fulfillment of your wishes becomes a no-brainer, or perhaps you'd call it a new-brainer. This new brain is comprised exclusively of infinite God energy, your higher self at work every day. I want you to seriously contemplate another observation made by the initiatic spiritual master Omram Mikhail Ivanov in a lecture given in January of 1971. This is a lecture that I've listened to many times. Quote, "Our higher self is perfect, omniscient, and almighty, a fragment of God himself, a pure, transparent, luminous quintessence." This will very likely be a challenge for you as you consider a new concept of yourself by accepting some truths that you have been raised to believe are falsehoods. Yet I ask you to study this ancient spiritual teaching, which is designed to familiarize you with a radical idea about the powers you possess just by the fact that you are a living, breathing human being. If you are committed to accessing your higher consciousness, then you must be willing to do what is required in order to integrate what this great initiatic teacher is offering. In order to accomplish becoming an almighty being, your higher self, that is God, must be enlarged from a spark to a more meaningful portion of your essence. Since you are a piece of God, and therefore have that within you, you needn't doubt your own divinity. As Jesus reminds you in the New Testament, is it not written in your law, I have said, you are God's? That's from the book of John 10:34. As a growing spark of God, you must be willing to say, that portion of myself that has not edged God out, that is ego, must be perfect. It is all-knowing and it is almighty. There is nothing that this higher self, that I am, cannot accomplish. Once again, let's look back at something Jesus told us. Quote, with God, all things are possible. That's in the book of Matthew 19:26. All things are possible leaves nothing out. As my teachers in the initiatic sciences frequently reminded me, this higher self, that portion of God that is us, only begins to notice us and give us the attention we crave when we enlarge it from a tiny spark and invite that energy into our life. Your awareness that God isn't something external to you, but rather a portion of yourself, is truly a giant step in your spiritual evolution. You can tell yourself with genuine knowing, I am perfect. All forms of I am have tremendous significance, as you will learn when you listen to the next chapter on your highest self. In this chapter, you are discovering your higher self. God no longer resides outside of you and no longer plays favorites. In short, you've revised humankind's image of a God created in its own egoistic idea of itself. A God who knows how to heal, yet withholds healing from some and offers it to others who are presumed to have paid some kind of dues. A God who is angry. A God who gives humans the pleasure of sexuality, but promises to burn in hell those who don't follow rules devised by other humans. A God who gives us eyes and remains invisible, but threatens damnation for those who don't believe in him. A God who demands to be paid for services with fancy temples and gold-lined costumes for his highest representatives. This is a God of the ego. Your higher self is a piece of an all-loving, all-embracing, creative source. All you need do is accept that this is not something external to yourself. It resides within you. The kingdom of heaven is within. In fact, it is you. And all you need do is begin to align yourself with this divine essence. Begin to act like it acts and think like it thinks. And you will begin the process of manifesting just as it does. This is the true essence of living a life in which your wishes are fulfilled Giving Your Divine Nature a Chance. The second part of this program provides a step-by-step plan for allowing your higher self to take over the process of fulfilling your desires. In these opening chapters, I hope to jar you into an awareness of how powerful a being you really are when you get past so much of the nonsensical conditioning that has dominated your enculturation. Toss out any self-limiting ideas about your divine nature and what it is capable of achieving. Befriend that spark, consult it frequently, nurture it, pay close attention to it, believe in it, and practice describing yourself first as a spiritual being, one who lives as frequently as possible from this all-loving, all-giving, all-joyful place called your higher self. Your higher self is just what it says, higher than your false self, higher than your material physical self. It is the part of you that is aligned with your very source of being. In the next chapter, you have the opportunity to consider an even more unlikely assertion in light of all that you've been exposed to since childhood. Not only do you have a lower ego-based false self, as well as the spiritually based higher self that is a piece of God, but you have a highest self, a self that you have been trained to believe is not something that you should ever claim. Your highest self awaits you in chapter 3, the next chapter. Here are 3 suggestions for implementing the ideas of this chapter. 1. Set aside multiple times during your day to stop and ask yourself this key question. Right now, in what I am about to say or do my desires stem from my lower or my higher self? The ego is all about self-serving, ownership, winning, judging, and so on. The higher self is about serving, loving, and being in a non-judgmental state of peace. Ask yourself this question and create the opportunity to align yourself more fully with God. You then have access to the same powers of manifestation as your source of being. This question, when honestly explored, helps you align with the power to fulfill your wishes and desires. You don't need to abolish your ego animal nature. You do need to keep it tamed, but it isn't allowed to overshadow or destroy your spirit. Give your divine nature a chance by asking yourself this question. Right now, in what I am about to say or do my desires stem from my lower or my higher self? A very important question. Second suggestion. Spend some of your quiet meditation time visualizing a tiny spark of awareness glowing within your being. Practice seeing this God portion of yourself expanding its glow within your mind. See it growing into a personally satisfying size. Continue this expansion exercise, sensing the spark and glow as your God essence. You will begin acting from this inner God-realized image. And the third suggestion, use these affirmations frequently. I am all-knowing. I am all-powerful. I am unlimited. This helps you banish doubt. And refer to this portion of yourself that lives in a spiritual world of no restrictions. Simply affirm to yourself without explaining to others or demonstrating pride in what you're doing. You are ridding yourself of ego-dominated mental messages that continue to want to convince you that you are primarily your body and its 5 senses. Chapter 3, Your Highest Self. And here is a display quote from the book of Philippians. Quote, "Let this mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus, who, being in the form of God, did not consider it robbery to be equal with God." In the previous chapter, you explored the idea that there's a spark of God within you, which you can choose to expand into a consciously larger component of your daily life. This spark is your spiritual essence, your higher self. As your awareness increases that you are a God-realized being, you will welcome it as the central focus of your life. The concept of your higher self will gradually evolve into your highest self, which is truly omniscient, almighty, and capable of producing miracles. Here you will see a new reality, a majestic idea of yourself that previously seemed inconceivable. Your highest self is described in the pronouncement in the display quote that I just read, written by St. Paul in his letters to the Philippians in the New Testament. You move from being a spark or a fragment of God to being able to assert that I am God, and not feel as if you're committing blasphemy or a cardinal sin by such a declaration. Here, the idea that you are equal with God was promoted by Jesus Christ, and you are encouraged by him to let this mind be in you. This isn't the God created by humans, the ego-driven deity who plays favorites and requires ostentatious places of worship, has temper tantrums, demands reparations, and is filled with rage, punishing those who do not do his bidding. Not even close. I am speaking here of the creative source of all being, a God who is responsible for creating the miraculous movement from non-being to being.